So, welcome back to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover the important news items of that day's newspaper in a very short span of time within 20 minutes. All right. Now, today's newspaper is June 29th newspaper. And what were the important topics that were discussed or featured in today's newspaper? Let's take a look at the important topics from today's newspaper that we'll discuss in this lecture within a span of 20 minutes. So, topic number one is: recently, it was announced that Prime Minister Narendra Modi won't attend Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Kazakhstan's capital, Astana. Okay, the Indian delegation shall be led by our External Affairs Minister S. Shankar. Okay, this is one news item because in this we'll discuss what Shanghai Cooperation Organization is all about. Okay, then recently, Financial Action Task Force that deals with money laundering at a global scale. They have said that India has performed very well as far as controlling money laundering and terrorist financing is concerned. So we'll talk about FATF. Then we'll talk about tariff hikes by telecom giants. Telecom giants like Airtel, Jio, Vodafone Idea basically. They have raised their tariffs. Jio has raised its tariff by 20 to 25%. Airtel has raised its rates by 10 to 15%. So we'll try to understand why did they do so. Okay. And in the end, we'll talk about POCSO Act. POCSO Act was in news because recently a case has been filed against former Chief Minister of Karnataka, B.S. Yediyurappa, and he has recently got bail in or he got a stay from Karnataka High Court. So we won't be concerned with that news item. What is the situation of B.S. Yediyurappa? We'll talk about POCSO Act. Okay? All right. So without further ado, without further delay, let's start with Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Astana. So PM Modi will not attend Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit taking place between July 3 to July 4 in Astana, Kazakhstan. The Indian delegation, as I've told before, will be led by External Affairs Minister S. Shankar. Now, 2024, in the year 2024, the presidency of this organization is with Kazakhstan. All right? And Kazakhstan actually took over the presidency from India. So in the year 2023, India held the presidency of SCO, and therefore the SCO Summit was held in India in 2023. But that summit was held virtually. So no leaders came to India. The summit was a virtual summit, but Kazakhstan's summit would be, or this summit would be held offline. All right, it won't be held in a virtual mode. Okay, but Prime Minister Modi won't be visiting. Now, what is Shanghai Cooperation Organization? So let's talk a bit about SCO. This is the virtual summit. This photo is from the virtual summit, as you can see over here. Okay, so about SCO. Now, it is a Eurasian. Eurasian means Europe plus Asia. All right, so it is basically a Eurasian political, economic, and international security and defense organization. So all the countries belonging to this organization, SCO, discuss political, economic, security, and defense related issues. It is a Eurasian organization because of the presence of Russia. Rest all the other countries are Asian countries, but Russia lies in Asia as well as in Europe. So that is why, because of that, it is a Eurasian organization. It was established on 15 June 2001. Its headquarters are in Beijing, China. Okay. And in 2001, it was established by 6 countries, and these 6 countries are known as the founding members of SCO. China and Russia were the most important members who constituted this organization. Then, along with China and Russia, there were a few Central Asian countries of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Then, later on, in 2017, India and Pakistan were added, and the last country to join SCO was Iran. Okay, so in total, SCO has 9 member countries. Okay, the last one to join was Iran in 2023. Now, what is the significance of SCO for India? Why is this organization important for India? First of all, India requires land connectivity to Europe. And for that, India has to pass Central Asia. Therefore, India needs to have good relations and India needs to engage with Central Asian countries. Now, these Central Asian countries are part of SCO. All right. Plus, these Central Asian countries have vast reserves of oil and gas. And India wants to collaborate with them as far as exploration of oil and gas are concerned so that India secures its energy security. India takes care of its energy security because India also requires oil and natural gas. Plus, the Samarkand Declaration signed at 22nd Summit 2022 centralizes connectivity, which is a priority for India. So connectivity is important, connectivity to Europe via Central Asia, plus energy and food security. So it is important for India because of energy security and land connectivity to Europe, all right, via Central Asia. Then this organization is important for cultural cooperation. SCO member countries have decided to designate one city every year from SCO member country as tourism and cultural capital every year under rotating initiative. And the first city to receive the tag of tourism and cultural capital of SCO was Kashi, Varanasi. Okay, it was the first tourism and cultural capital of SCO. So you have to remember this fact. Okay, plus this organization is important for cooperating as far as counter-terrorism issues are concerned, because all these countries are victims of terrorism. India is a victim of terrorism. Pakistan says it is a victim of terrorism. Then Russia is also a victim of terrorism because Russia has faced in the last 1 year 2 terrorist attacks. So all these countries are victims of terrorism. Hence, for counter-terrorism cooperation, SCO is important. All right, that's about it. We'll discuss about Shanghai Cooperation Organization further when this summit happens on July 3rd and July 4th. All right. Now let's move on to the next news item, which is Financial Action Task Force. Now let's discuss why this was discussed in the news, why FATF was in the news. Now FATF says that India has achieved high level of technical compliance with the requirement of global anti-money laundering. They say that India's money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regime has achieved good results. Because you see, terrorists also finance their organizations through money laundering. So FATF takes care of money laundering as well as terrorist financing. Okay. So FATF has said in its report that India on the whole has done a good job, but there are a few areas that India needs to improve upon. These areas are, first of all, when there are cases regarding money laundering and terrorist financing, well, India needs to quickly finish off those cases. So there are delays relating to conclusion of money laundering and terrorist financing prosecutions. Plus, India needs to further enhance various measures regarding counter-terrorism financing. Okay, so it needs to implement stricter measures to prevent terrorism financing of terrorist organizations. But on the whole, India has done a good job. Now let's talk a bit more about FATF, the organization FATF. So FATF is a global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog. It was set up in 1989 by G7 countries, okay, in Paris. G7 Summit in Paris in 1989. They decided that we need to form an organization called FATF that will look after money laundering and money laundering basically. Initially, they only focused on money laundering. Later, after September 11 attacks, 2001 Twin Tower attack in USA, 2001 terrorist attack, they added terrorist financing also to the roles and responsibilities of list of roles and responsibilities of FATF. Okay, so currently FATF has 3 functions. Number 1, it needs to combat money laundering on a global scale. Number 2, it needs to combat terrorist financing on a global scale. Number 3, it needs to prevent proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. That different countries should not get nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, weapons of mass destruction. All right. Now, the highest decision-making body in FATF is FATF plenary. That means a conference of sorts. It is the highest decision-making body of FATF. It meets thrice every year. Okay. Now, let's talk a bit more about FATF membership. How many members are there? So, it is a 39-member body. Of these 39 countries, of these 39 members, 37 are countries. Okay. And 2 are regional organizations. Which regional organizations? European Commission and Gulf Cooperation Council. Okay. Now, India joined as observer in 2006, but became a full-time member in 2010. India is also a member of FATF's regional partners. So, FATF has various regional organizations also. One is Asia Pacific Group, the other is Eurasian Group. India is a member of both these sub-organizations under FATF. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to third news item, which is tariff hikes by telecom giants. Now, recently, Jio, Airtel, these are the two biggest telecom giants, telecom companies in India. But Vodafone Idea is also included in this news item. So all the 3 India's leading telecom operators, Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel, Vodafone Idea, have announced steep increase in prices, tariff hikes. Okay. Now, what are the reasons cited by them? They say that these telecom companies are facing financial crunch. Okay, So to solve that financial crunch, they need to increase their average revenue per user. In fact, Airtel said that their average revenue per user should be greater than 300 rupees. So 300 rupees minimum, they should earn 300 rupees from every customer. Okay, they need to increase their average revenue per user to improve their financial health, because already Airtel and Vodafone are debt laden. They have a lot of debt burden. Plus, they need to increase their financial health. Why? Because recently 5G spectrum was auctioned by the government a few years back. All right. And they had to spend a lot of money. They had to invest a lot of money to buy this 5G spectrum. Okay. So to recover their costs, they have to increase their ARPU. Plus, Jio and Airtel have offered 5G services to its customers without increasing the prices. Without increasing the prices. That means 5G services were being offered to customers at the prices of 4G services. Okay. So they are saying that they have spent a lot of money on buying 5G spectrum, so they have to recover their costs to improve their financial health. So they are increasing the prices of 5G services. They are charging an extra premium on 5G services. So they need to monetize their 5G services. Until now, they were charging the same rates as 4G services. Okay, so basically the main aim is financial health, and this was bound to happen. If people are surprised that they have increased their rates, well, they shouldn't be surprised at all, because this was bound to happen, because these companies actually spent a lot of money to buy 5G spectrum. All right, okay. That's about it. This is a very short news item, small news item. Now let's move on to, last but not the least, the fourth news item, that is POCSO Act. Now, what is POCSO Act? Prevention of Child Sexual Offences. Okay, so this act actually criminalizes and punishes for sexual offences against children. Okay, now why was this in news? Well, the Karnataka High Court recently extended 2 weeks of its interim order restraining CID investigation from arresting former Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa. Okay, against whom a POCSO case has been filed. Okay, now we won't get into the political matter. We will just talk about POCSO. So what is POCSO? So Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, this law was enacted in 2012. It actually provides a legal framework for protection of children from offences of sexual assault, sexual harassment, pornography. Okay. Now India enacted this law to fulfill its obligations under United Nations Convention on Rights of Child 1992. So India actually signed this convention and ratified. So to fulfill its obligation under UN Convention on Rights of Child, India had to enact this law. Now, in this law, first of all, the law gives the definition of a child. Who is a child? So, any person, irrespective of the gender, with age bracket or with age less than 18 years. So, if a person is less than the age of 18 years, well, for the purposes of this act, he or she shall be considered a child. Okay, and any sexual offense against them would be tried under POCSO Act. Plus, this act has very strong punishments. Depends on the crime you commit under this act, but it has very strong punishments. It even has a death penalty as well. Okay, so it is a very strong law to deter criminals against committing offenses against children. All right, so basically to protect our children. And that would be all. With that, I conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it is adding value to your preparation, because if you're regular with this series, it is definitely adding value, even if it does not seem so right now. Just mark my words, just accept my words that if you follow this lecture series regularly, you make it a part of your daily routine, well, in the long run, you'll stand to gain a lot out of it. Okay. With that, I sign off, and I'll see you next time with next day's newspaper. Thank you, everyone.